The waitress lied she was taken to avoid her ex. Then the mafia boss played along. The clock above the grill was stuck at 2:47. It had been for 3 weeks. The real time was in my bones, and they ached with the 3 a.m. humidity, a wet, cold ache that started in my knuckles and worked its way up to my shoulders. Seattle was drowning outside. Rain wasn't just falling, it was a physical presence. A fine, clinging mist that turned the harbor moon's neon sign a dying blue crescent into a bleeding watercolor on the wet asphalt. I watched the puddles tremble. My shift had officially ended an hour ago, but here I was, wiping the same Formica counter. My hands were a geography of small, white scars. Courtesy of the industrial dishwasher, they perpetually stung, smelling of bleach and old coffee. I was 24 years old, and I felt like rusted steel. The bell over the door jangled, a sound I usually ignored. This time, it brought in a wave of cold air that smelled like the Puget Sound and something expensive, and it brought him. Rhett Caro? My stomach did a sick, heavy flip. He wasn't the guy I dated anymore, the one with big dreams and cheap beer. This was Caro Ventures Rhett. Slicked back hair and a suit that cost more than my rent for 6 months. He was flanked by 2 men, gorillas in $1,000 jackets. Sky Shield response. The logo read, Private Security. They scanned the empty diner, just me. Old man Hemlock sleeping in booth 4, and Sal snoring in the kitchen. They were built for boardrooms and back alleys. Not a greasy spoon. Rhett slid onto a stool, the red vinyl groaning under his suit. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Mara, you look exhausted. His voice was that smooth, practice pitch he used for investors. You're a hard woman to find. You haven't answered my calls. It's 3 a.m. Rhett, I'm working. I kept my voice flat, my knuckles white on the wet rag I was holding. We both know you're better than this. He gestured around the empty diner. And we had a deal, an understanding. I invested in you. I kept that job at the copy shop open for you. Didn't I? He leaned in, his cologne thick and suffocating. You owe me, Mara, a debt of gratitude, and I'm here to collect. He meant time. He meant attention. He meant me. The walls felt like they were closing in. The 2 guards were watching, impassive. Panic, cold and sharp, shot up my throat. I backed into the coffee machine, the metal warm against my spine. I needed an out. I needed a shield. The lie tumbled out, weak and desperate. I can't. I'm seeing someone, and he's picking me up. He's on his way right now. Rhett actually laughed, a short, ugly bark. A boyfriend. You don't lie to me, Mara. It's insulting. Who could possibly... The bell cut him off. This time, the gust of wind was Arctic. The man who entered didn't just walk in. He occupied the space. He was tall, dressed in a black leather jacket that was soaked dark with rain. Water dripped from his black hair onto the linoleum. He was flanked by 2 men, but they were nothing like Rhett's. Security. They were leaner, sharper, moving with a fluid grace that was more dangerous than simple muscle. The man in the center, their boss. His presence hit me like a physical blow. He had a face that looked carved from granite, and his eyes. They were the color of the Seattle sky before a storm. He radiated an absolute freezing calm. He was the quietest thing in the room, and he was suddenly the only thing that mattered. The man Silas Cade, though I didn't know his name yet, stopped his gaze on Rhett. He had heard every word. He moved, didn't rush. He walked past Rhett, his 2 men fanning out to block the Sky Shield guards. He stopped right next to me. He was so close I could smell the rain on his leather, ozone and something metallic. He put his hand on my arm, just above the elbow. His grip was light, almost non-existent, but it rooted me to the spot. He looked at Rhett. She isn't lying. The words were quiet, not a threat, but a fact, like stating the color of the sky. Sal's snoring stopped. Hemlock's spoon clattered into his empty bowl. Rhett's smirk was brittle. Excuse me, this is a private conversation. Rhett's eyes dropped to the stranger's left hand, the one resting on the counter. On his ring finger was a heavy piece of silver, a serpent eating its own tail. I saw Rhett stop breathing for a second. The color drained from his face, leaving a pasty, sick pallor. The Sky Shield guys tensed, but they looked at Rhett, not the new man, waiting for an order that wouldn't come. Rhett knew that ring. The stranger turned his head, just slightly. His lips were near my ear. His voice was a whisper, meant only for me, but it carried more weight than Rhett's shout. "If you want me to play the part, nod." My heart was a trapped bird against my ribs. Fear was part of it, a cold, logical fear of Rhett. But this new sensation, it was different. It was the feeling of standing on a cliff edge. I wasn't just scared of Rhett anymore. I was terrified and fascinated by this man. I nodded, a tiny, jerky movement. The bigger of Rhett's two bodyguards didn't like the shift in power. He puffed up, his hand dropping to the holster on his belt. "Mr. Caro, you want us to—" Silas didn't turn. He didn't even blink. He just gave a small, almost invisible nod. The shadow on his left Daxibara, I'd learn later, moved. He wasn't fast. He was just there. He stepped inside the guard's reach, his body blocking my view. I heard a soft click. Dax's hand gently, almost politely, clamped onto the guard's wrist. He pressed a thumb into a nerve cluster. The guard's face went white. His fingers uncurled from the butt of his gun. Dax didn't take the weapon. He just slid the man's hand away from it. A simple, dismissive gesture that said, "Don't even think about it." It was over in 2 seconds. No punches, no yelling, just utter, cold control. Silas turned his attention from Rhett as if he'd ceased to exist. He looked at me. "Your check." He didn't order." "No," Silas said. His voice was patient. He pulled a money clip from his jacket. He dropped 3 $100 bills on the wet counter. "For everyone, the sleeping man, the cook, your trouble." He slid a card toward me. It wasn't paper, it was thin. Black metal, just a name. Silas Cade, and a 10-digit number. "When you need to be safe, call." Rhett shoved himself off the stool, his face mottled with rage and humiliation. "You have no idea who I am," he hissed at Silas. Silas didn't reply. He just held Rhett's gaze until Rhett looked away first. "Let's go!" Rhett snapped at his guards. They practically scrambled for the door. Rhett paused in the doorway, the rain whipping at his suit. He pointed a finger at me. "This isn't over, Mara. You can't hide behind this. This ghost. I always get what I'm owed." He vanished into the night. Silas Cade watched him go. He and his men lingered for another 30 seconds, a silent, powerful presence. Then, as quietly as they arrived, they were gone. The bell jangled softly. I was alone again, but the diner felt different. The air was charged, tasting of ozone and danger. My knees gave out. I slumped against the counter, the wet rag still clutched in my hand. My stomach was a tight, cold knot. I stared at the black metal card. Silas Cade, the Cade Syndicate. I didn't need to look it up. The name resonated with that deep, primal part of the city everyone knew about, but nobody talked about. My lie, my stupid, panicked little lie, it hadn't saved me. It had just painted a target on my back and handed the gun to a different kind of predator. I had tried to escape a shark, and in my desperation, I had just signaled a great white. I was trembling, and for the first time that night, it wasn't from the cold. The black metal card sat on my rickety nightstand, absorbing all the morning light in the room. I hadn't slept. I'd come home, double-bolted the door, and watched the gray Seattle dawn seep through my blinds, my heart still hammering that sick rhythm from the harbor moon. Rhett's threat echoed in the quiet, and the stranger's silence. My phone, a cheap prepaid model, vibrated against the wood, an unknown number. I stared at it, my stomach tightening. It was 9 a.m. I was already late for my other job. I answered. "Miss Quinn, Mara Quinn?" The voice was female, sharp and cut with the kind of precision that cost $400 an hour. There was no greeting. "My name is Nora Vance. I represent the legal interests of the Cade Syndicate, Mr. Cade asked me to contact you regarding the incident last night involving Mr. Rhett Caro. Legal interests? Syndicate? She said it like she was talking about a shipping company. I cleared my throat, which felt like it was full of sand. I don't know what you mean. I have to get to work. I am aware of your employment at Pioneer Legal Copy, the voice continued, steamrolling my interruption. I'm also aware of Mr. Caro's persistent and now escalated harassment. We are offering a temporary protection agreement, a formalization of the arrangement Mr. Cade initiated on your behalf. A protection agreement. My other life, the one that paid the rent the Harbor Moon couldn't cover, flashed in my mind at Pioneer Legal Copy. I spent my days breathing in the scent of hot toner and aging manila folders. I was the one who ran the binding machine, who duplicated restraining orders, eviction notices, and billion-dollar corporate lawsuits. I saw every day how words on paper could build a fortress or a cage. I understood the power of a signature. I understood loopholes. And I was caught between two Rhett, whose investment in me was an unwritten contract of suffocation, and now Silas Cade, offering a written one. I didn't know which was more dangerous. Where, I said, my voice barely a whisper. The Perch, Ballard Avenue, 1 hour. He will be alone. The line clicked dead. The Perch was a tiny coffee shop wedged between a bookstore and an antique nautical supply. It smelled of dark roast and old wood. He was there, in a back booth, just as she'd said, alone. In the daylight, Silas Cade looked less like a specter and more like a man carved from unforgiving materials. He wore a simple gray Henley, the fabric pulling over shoulders that were broader than I'd realized. No leather jacket, no visible weapons, but the stillness was there. He sat with his back to the wall, a cup of black coffee untouched in front of him. He watched me walk across the worn floor, and his gaze didn't just see me, it dismantled me. Noted the second-hand coat, the cheap sneakers, the lack of sleep. I slid into the booth opposite him. The vinyl was cold. "Miss Quinn," he said. His voice was the same as last night, low, quiet, with a gravelly texture. "You shouldn't have," I said. "It came out harsher than I intended. You made it worse. Rhett, he doesn't back down, he doubles down." "He backed down last night." It was a simple correction. "Nora Vance spoke to you." "She did." "A protection agreement." I hated that word. It sounded like something you'd sign before you were moved into a safe house, or before you disappeared. "It's a charade," Silas said, leaning forward just an inch. The intensity in his eyes held me captive. "It's a role I'm offering to play. Your boyfriend, your protector. Whatever word you want to use, we make it visible. We make it clear that you are not undefended. Rhett Caro understands property. He understands leverage. We will present you as leverage he cannot touch." "And what's the catch? What do I owe you?" My hands were shaking. I hid them under the table. "Nothing." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. Nobody does nothing for nothing, especially not... I trailed off, not wanting to say his name. Not in his world. "Especially not me," he finished, unfazed. "I have rules for this, for the pretense. 1, I do not control your phone. I don't tap it. I don't track it. I don't read your messages. 2, I do not touch your private life. Where you go. Who you see aside from me is your business. 3, I only appear when you need me, or when I have credible information of a threat. This ends the second you tell me to stop. The absolute second He paused, letting the terms settle in the air between us. He was offering me the one thing Rhett had always taken control. 7 days, I said. My voice was stronger now. "I'll agree to this pretense, for 7 days. That's it, in exchange. He and his Sky Shield animals. They don't come near my apartment, and they don't come near either of my jobs. Not the diner, not Pioneer." "Done," he said. "Nora will draw it up, not for you to sign, for him to be served. A notice of intent, it will be clear." "Why?" I had to ask. "Why do any of this for a waitress you met for 10 seconds?" He looked past me, out the window, at the gray rain starting to fall again. His profile was sharp, hard. "Rhett Caro is a parasite, and I dislike parasites." He looked back at me. "And the Cade Syndicate has a code. It's not law. It's just a code. We don't touch children. We don't interfere with the community clinics, the shelters, the nonprofits, and we do not permit the strong to betray the truly weak." A strange, twisted morality. An organized crime boss with a code of ethics. It was the most ridiculous and the most terrifying thing I had ever heard. "A test," I said, the idea forming as I spoke. "If this is real, if you're really protecting." He inclined his head. "Name it." "My mother, Dr. Evelyn Quinn. She's a doctor at the Fremont Community Clinic. She works late tonight, past midnight. She takes the bus home. I want her brought home, safely." I watched him for any sign of annoyance, any flicker that this was beneath him. There was nothing. Just a calm, assessing look. "What does she drive?" "She doesn't. She takes the bus. Route 40. Her stop is at 3rd and Pine. She won't be taking the bus tonight. Inars, he said, she will be home, safe, by 12:30. You won't see my men. She won't know she was being watched, but she will be safe." He stood. The meeting over. He was taller than I remembered. He put a $20 bill on the table. "Get some breakfast, Mara." That night, my shift at Pioneer was agony. I kept checking my phone. My mother was stubborn. She'd refuse a ride if she thought it was a fuss. At 12:15, my phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "Just got home. Honey, a very nice young man in a town car insisted I take a ride. Said the clinic arranged it as a new staff appreciation perk. How lovely. Sleep well." I let out a breath I'd been holding since the diner. No fanfare, no fuss, no sky shield intimidation, just a quiet, clean, perfect execution. The next 2 days were silent. I went to work at the diner. I went to work at Pioneer for the first time in months. Rhett's shadow wasn't hanging over me. No calls, no texts, no friendly drive-bys from his Sky Shield guards. The silence was a relief, but it was also heavy. It was a silence bought and paid for by Silas Cade. On the 3rd night, I came home from the diner, my feet throbbing. There was a package outside my apartment door. Not a box, a floral arrangement. It was a large, expensive vase filled with 24 black roses. Their petals were dyed a deep, matte, funereal black. Tucked inside was a simple, thick card. It was completely blank. My blood ran cold. This was Rhett. It was his signature move from when we'd first dated, overwhelming, expensive gestures that felt more like branding than affection. But this was a perversion of it, a threat. "I'm still here. I'm watching." My hands trembled so badly I could barely get the key in the lock. I shoved the flowers inside and slammed the door, leaning against it, my heart pounding. He'd been here. He'd been at my door. I didn't even think. My fingers, acting on their own, pulled the black metal card from my pocket. I dialed the number. It rang once. Cade. His voice. "He was here," I whispered, sliding down the door to the floor. "He left flowers. Black flowers at my door. Silas, he was at my door." I didn't hear him say goodbye. I just heard the click. I sat there, frozen, for I don't know how long, 10 minutes, 20. Then I heard it. Not a knock, just a sound, the soft, heavy tread of a boot on the hallway carpet. I crept to the peephole. He was there, standing outside my door, facing the elevator bank. He was in the leather jacket again, his back to me. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't pacing. He was just standing, a sentinel. I opened the door. He turned, his face shadowed in the dim hallway. "You don't have to," I started. "He won't come back tonight." Silas said he wasn't looking at me, but at the empty hallway. "Are you going to hurt him?" The question came out small. "I'm going to stand here," he said. "Go to sleep, Mara." He didn't ask to come in. He didn't ask me any more questions. He just turned back to face the hallway. I closed the door, I locked the bolt, and for the first time in a long time, I walked away from the door. I looked at the black roses, and their power was gone. He was on the other side of that door. A storm was raging, a storm of Rhett's making and Silas's, but in the middle of it, right here, was this absolute terrifying stillness. He was like the sound of well-oiled steel sliding into place, a frightening sound, but one that promised, for tonight at least, that the lock would hold. The protection Silas offered was a bubble of silence. For 3 days, I moved between the Harbor Moon and Pioneer legal copy in that bubble. No black flowers, no texts from Rhett, no Sky Shield trucks parked just up the street, pretending to be on a break. The quiet was addictive. It was also a lie. The real war wasn't about me. I had just stumbled into the blast radius. Nora Vance, Silas's lawyer, delivered the truth with the same surgical precision she'd used on the phone. We met at a sterile cafe downtown. All white tile and chrome, she slid a tablet across the table. "This is Rhett Caro," she said. It was, but it was a Rhett I didn't know. He was smiling on a stage, shaking hands with the mayor. The banner behind him read, "Caro Ventures Reimagining Seattle's Tomorrow." "Caro Ventures is a shell," Nora said, tapping the screen. "It's a clean face for a massive leveraged buyout of the Pier 46 redevelopment zone. They plan to level 6 blocks of low-income housing and industrial fronts to build luxury condos." My blood went cold. 6 blocks, that's... "Yes," she said, her eyes sharp. "That's where your mother's clinic is. The Fremont Community Clinic is in the very center of their demolition map." This wasn't about a lingering obsession. This was about scorched earth. Rhett didn't just want me. He wanted to erase my entire world. Nora continued, her voice low. "The problem is, the city has zoning protections for that clinic. To break them, Caro needs unanimous tenant buyout or proof of neighborhood decay. His harassment of you was step 1, proving the area is unsafe, but his real target is the clinic's lease, which your mother controls." "He wouldn't," I whispered. "He already is." She swiped again. A new file appeared. The Bureau of Urban Integrity, the BUI. They've been investigating Caro Ventures for 6 months, suspected money laundering, routing offshore cash through high-end real estate. "So the police, the BUI can stop him." Nora almost smiled. "The BUI is also investigating the Cade syndicate. Mr. Cade is the low-hanging fruit, the obvious monster. They're spending all their resources watching him, while men like Caro, in their bespoke suits, are the ones actually poisoning the city well. Silas knows they're watching him. He just doesn't appreciate them looking in the wrong direction." The bubble burst the next day. I was at Pioneer, running a batch of blueprints through the large format scanner, when 2 men in Sky Shield uniforms walked in. They were different from Rhett's usual guerrillas. These ones looked like ex-cops, all hard jaws and bored eyes. They served me, right there, in front of my boss, Mr. Henderson. A temporary restraining order. It was thick, official-looking paper. It claimed I was unstable, that I had been stalking Rhett Caro, and that I was prohibited from coming within 500 feet of his person or properties. Pioneer legal copy, my boss was informed, was listed as one of his properties. Caro Ventures was our biggest client. "Mara," Mr. Henderson said, his face pale, You have to go. I'm sorry, you can't be here." I was fired, just like that, humiliated, standing on the sidewalk with a box of my desk supplies. The lie was so perfect, so clean. I was the crazy ex-girlfriend. He was the victim. I called Nora, my voice shaking with a rage so cold it burned. "I'm on my way," she said. She met me at my apartment. I showed her the papers. She didn't look at the words. She looked at the paper itself. She held it up to the weak afternoon light. "He's arrogant," she murmured. "He's fast and arrogant, and he makes mistakes." She pointed to the bottom corner. "Look." It was a watermark, faint, almost invisible, a stylized CM. "City mark," Nora said, her eyes gleaming. That's the proprietary, high-security printer used by City Hall. Specifically, the Zoning and Permits Office. This isn't a fake order from a copy shop. Mara, this is a real document, pushed through the system by someone on his payroll. He didn't just buy a security firm, he bought a city official. That night, Silas came to my apartment. He didn't wait in the hall. I let him in. He filled the small space, his presence sucking the air out. The black roses were long gone, but his shadow remained. "He cut me off," I said, handing him the order. "He got me fired. He's going after my mom's clinic. This pretense isn't working. Silas, it's making him more aggressive." Silas read the order. His face was unreadable, but a muscle in his jaw jumped. "It's not working because it's in the shadows. A whisper, a threat. He's answered it. Now we answer him. We upgrade the script." "What does that mean?" "Manihigan. It means we stop being a secret. We become public." He looked at me, his gaze unflinching. "This Thursday, Caro Ventures is co-hosting the Lumenspire Founders Gala, a fundraiser. Half the city's political and financial power will be there. Rhett will be there, playing the victim. You will be there, with me." My heart hammered. Go there with you after he painted me as a stalker. They'll look at me like... "They will look at you like you are with me," he said, the finality in his tone chilling. He wants to play this game in public. "Fine, we will give them a show." "No." The word was out before I could stop it. Silas raised an eyebrow. "No," I said again, standing taller. "Not if I'm just a prop. Not if I'm just the woman on your arm. He's telling a story about me. If I go, I get to tell my own. I get to speak. No one speaks for me. Not him. Not you." A long silence stretched. He studied me, as if seeing a different texture in the light. "Agreed," he said. "Be ready Thursday, 7 p.m. Nora handled the dress. It arrived in a simple black garment bag. There was no price tag. It was deep emerald green. Silk so heavy it felt like water. When I put it on, it didn't feel like a costume. It felt like armor. When Silas arrived, he wasn't in leather. He was in a black suit so perfectly tailored it looked more forged than sewn. He didn't compliment the dress. He just watched me for a moment. "Nora called a boutique," I said, smoothing the silk. "She told them to send this." "I told her to," he said. "I gave her one instruction." He looked at my face, not the dress. "I told her to find the one that makes you stand straight. It seems she did." A knot I hadn't even realized I was carrying loosened in my chest. He hadn't chosen a dress to make me beautiful. He'd chosen one to make me strong. The Lumen Spire was a spear of glass and light stabbing the Seattle sky. The ballroom was on the top floor, a panorama of the city lights glittering like a field of fallen stars. And we were, instantly, the center of gravity. The moment we stepped from the elevator, the noise level dropped. It was a wave of whispers, of curious, hostile eyes. I saw Red across the room, glass of champagne in hand. He was charming a city councilwoman. He saw me. His smile tightened, but he didn't falter. He leaned in and whispered something to the woman. She looked at me. Her expression soured, turning to one of open, feminine contempt. The rumor spread like a virus. "That's her," a woman in diamonds whispered as I passed. "The one who was stalking him." "My God, she's with Cade," her husband murmured. "Talk about an upgrade." "She's a gold digger, jumping from one paycheck to the next. Tacky." My hands turned to ice. I wanted to run. Silas put his hand on the small of my back, not a possessive grip, just a steady, warm pressure. "Straight," he whispered, for my ears only. I lifted my chin. The speeches started, the mayor, the head of the Port Authority, then Rhett. He took the stage, all easy charm and feigned humility. He talked about revitalizing the waterfront, about community partnerships. He spoke of overcoming personal and professional obstacles, a veiled reference to me. The crowd adored him. Then, the auctioneer announced an unscheduled donor. "Mr. Silas Cade," the auctioneer said, his voice tight with surprise. Silas walked onto the stage. The room was so quiet I could hear the ice shifting in 1,000 glasses. He didn't go to the podium. He just stood in the center, a void in the bright lights. "My foundation," Silas began, his voice calm and carrying. "The Sunlight Pier Foundation believes in investing in Seattle's constants, the parts that don't get reimagined, the parts that simply work." He looked directly at Rhett. "Tonight we are making a donation of $500,000. A gasp went through the room. "This entire amount," Silas continued, "is earmarked for the Fremont Community Clinic, to Dr. Evelyn Quinn, to ensure their lease is secure for the next 20 years, and to expand their services, so they can continue to serve the people that towers like this one cast shadows on." My hand flew to my mouth. $500,000. He wasn't done. He turned his gaze from Rhett and found me in the crowd. He looked right at me. "I was moved to do this," he said, "by my guest tonight." He paused, letting the words land. "She is here as my personal guest, in the truest, most respected sense of that word. And she reminded me that integrity isn't about building new things. It's about protecting the things that matter." He walked off the stage. The applause was stunned, cold. A few people clapped, more out of shock at the sum than approval of the man. Rhett's face was a mask of polite fury. He had been outmaneuvered. Silas had just publicly tied his own notorious, untouchable name to the one clinic Rhett needed to destroy. He'd turned my mother's clinic from a vulnerability into a fortress. My phone vibrated in my clutch. A new text from Rhett. "We're not done." I looked at Silas, who was now standing beside me, an island of calm in a sea of hostile stares. He had won the battle. But Rhett's text wasn't a retreat, it was a declaration. The game hadn't just changed, it had escalated. And I was standing in the very center of the board, the orchestra, sensing the shift in the room's atmosphere after Silas's speech, nervously struck up a waltz. The glassy, amplified sound was brittle in the silence. The sea of Seattle's elite parted, leaving a wide, hostile circle around us. They were waiting for the monster to dance. Silas ignored them all. He turned to me. The anger from the stage gone, replaced by that unnerving, absolute calm. He extended his hand. "Mara." It wasn't a request, it was an anchor. My hand was shaking. I placed it in his. His grasp was warm, his palm steady. He led me onto the polished glass floor, and the city lights of the skyline swam beneath our feet. My emerald dress whispered against the floor. He placed his hand on my back. It was exactly as I had imagined, warm enough to steady me, firm enough to lead, but respectful. There was an inch of space between us that was more charged than any contact. We began to move. I was clumsy, my feet catching, my body stiff with the weight of 100 hostile stares. I could feel Rhett's gaze like a physical burn from across the room. The women's eyes were worse, dissecting me, calculating, dismissing. The floor seemed to tilt. The whispers were a rising hiss. "Gold digger, thug, how tacky." "I'm dizzy," I whispered, my voice tight. "Don't look at them," Silas murmured, his voice close to my ear, a low vibration that cut through the noise. "If you get dizzy, look at my eyes, just my eyes." I lifted my gaze from the floor. His eyes, that intense storm gray, met mine. They were deep and still. He wasn't looking at the crowd, he was looking at me, only at me. And the world dissolved. The whispers faded, the hostile stares blurred into a watercolor of out-of-focus light. The glass floor stabilized. There was only the solid presence of his hand on my back, the steady grip of his fingers on mine, and the compass of his gaze, my heart, which had been hammering a frantic, terrified rhythm, slowed. It seemed to fall into sync with his. My feet found the beat. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We moved across the floor, a single, fluid motion. He was a terrifyingly graceful dancer, all controlled strength. For a full minute, there was no Rhett, no rumor, no syndicate, just the quiet strength of the man holding me, keeping me upright in the middle of a storm. A mechanical whirring sound broke the spell. Outside the massive glass wall, a formation of lights rose from the darkness, a squadron of advertising drones, the kind Caro Ventures used for publicity stunts. They hovered, blocking the view of the Space Needle. "What is that?" I murmured. Silas's grip tightened on my hand. His eyes left mine, narrowing as he watched the display. The drones formed the Caro Ventures logo. Then they dissolved and reformed, a giant, pixelated, blinking red heart, and beside it, in bright, tacky blue M+S. A wave of laughter rippled through the ballroom. It was ugly, mocking laughter. Rhett, he hadn't just been outmaneuvered. He was twisting the narrative. He was turning Silas's grand gesture, my very presence, into a cheap, public romance. A joke. Look at the waitress and her new mob boss boyfriend. How cute. My face burned, a deep, humiliating crimson. I wanted to pull my hand away, to run. Silas pulled me closer. "Just an inch. I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice tight with a cold anger I hadn't heard before. I did not anticipate this." Before I could answer, a flicker of light danced on the pillar beside us. A tiny, perfect circle of red light, no bigger than a ladybug. I stared at it, confused. Dax Ibarra, Silas's guard, who had been 20 feet away, materialized at his shoulder. His voice was a low, urgent snap. "Sir Laser, 3 o'clock high, opposite roof." Silas didn't look. He didn't ask questions. He reacted. His arm, which had been respectfully on my back, clamped around my waist like a steel band. "Down," he commanded. He didn't push me. He pulled me, using his entire body as a shield, spinning us both behind a massive, load-bearing steel pillar. We hit the cold metal just as the sound of a high-velocity rifle shot cracked, and a thwack echoed through the ballroom. A woman screamed. The music died in a screech of violin. I was pressed against the pillar, Silas's body a solid wall in front of me, his arm still locked around my waist. My ears were ringing. "Dax, no return fire." Silas's voice was a low growl, full of command. "It's a setup. He wants a public gunfight. He wants the BUI here." Dax had his weapon drawn, a sleek, black pistol, but he held it low, scanning the darkness. "Shooter is gone. Boss, already moving." Silas let me go, but kept me behind him. He peered around the pillar. The bullet hadn't hit us. It had punched a clean, perfect hole through a large, suspended advertising panel right where we had been standing, a panel displaying Rhett Caro's smiling face. The room was in chaos. People were on the floor, crawling. The gala's private security was fumbling, shouting into radios. Silas ignored them. He looked at the shattered sign. He saw the thick black power cable running from it into a junction box on the floor. He looked at Nora Vance, who was standing near the wall, already tapping furiously on her phone. "Nora," he said. "Working," she replied, not looking up. Silas strode forward, gripped the thick cable, and yanked it from the wall with a single, powerful motion. The entire bank of accent lights, including the advertising signs and the stage lights, died. Our half of the ballroom was plunged into sudden, disorienting darkness. A few more people screamed. It lasted for 3 seconds. In the blackness, Nora's voice was a sharp counterpoint. "Got it. The darkness forced the external camera's infrared to spike. I have the heat signature. Northeast rooftop. He's moving to the back stairwell. East parking garage. Wait. I have the van. It's white. Sky shield." The emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in a sickly yellow glow. "We're leaving," Silas said. He took my arm. His men, Dax and the other, formed a tight wedge around us. We weren't running. We were walking. A controlled, purposeful exit through the terrified, gawking crowd. The main alarm began to howl, a deafening shriek. We were in the private elevator, the doors sliding shut, sealing us in sudden, blessed silence. The adrenaline hit me. My knees buckled. I sagged against the mahogany wall, shaking so hard my teeth chattered. The green silk dress felt cold and thin. He tried. I I stammered. "He tried to kill you. He tried to kill us." I looked at him, and he was standing perfectly still, adjusting his cuffs, as if he'd just finished a business meeting. "Silas," I whispered, and the name felt different. It felt real. "Tonight, don't disappear. Please, and you can't just leave me at the door and vanish." He looked at me. His face was hard, the lines around his eyes etched deep in the elevator's dim light. "I will be at your front door," he said, his voice quiet. "Absolute. I will be in the hallway until sunrise, but if you want me to go, I will go. The choice is still yours. Mara." The doors opened to a private, subterranean garage. A black armored sedan glided to a stop in front of us. Dax opened the rear door. Silas guided me toward it, his hand on my elbow. I slid onto the cold leather. He leaned in, and I thought, for half a second, that he was going to kiss me. The thought made my heart stop. Instead, his lips brushed my temple. It was the lightest, briefest touch, a ghost of pressure. It was not possessive. It was not romantic. It was a promise, a seal. "You're safe," he said. The door closed. I watched through the tinted glass as he turned and got into a separate car with Dax. My car pulled away, and his followed. High above, in the ruined ballroom, Rhett Caro stood by the shattered window. He watched the two black sedans disappear into the Seattle streets. He was smiling, a thin, cold smile of utter satisfaction. He pulled out his phone and hit a single number on his speed dial. "It's done," he said. He took the bait. He reacted. The BUI will have 5 new witness reports of Cade's violent public behavior by morning. He listened, his smile widening. "Yes. Activate tidal drain. It's time to move the Halcyon Tower funds." The gala was 2 nights ago. 2 nights of Silas's man, Dax, parked in an unmarked sedan across the street from my apartment. The pretense of normalcy was gone. I was unemployed, my name smeared across the city's elite. I was a target, and I was furious. Rhett had used paper to destroy my life. That restraining order was a work of art, a perfect legal lie, but I knew paper. I had spent 2 years breathing in the scent of hot toner and industrial bleach at Pioneer Legal Copy. I knew its strengths, and I knew its weaknesses. I still had my key. At 3 a.m., my old diner shift time, I let myself into the dark, silent shop. The big digital printers were sleeping, their green standby lights blinking in the gloom. I didn't turn on the main lights. I went straight to the archival room. Mr. Henderson was meticulous. He kept hard copies of every major corporate and municipal order for 2 years. Caro Ventures, Pier 46 redevelopment. I found the stack. It was thick. Zoning permits, environmental impact studies, demolition schedules. It all looked clean, approved, stamped, but I knew the workflow. I pulled the master archival set and laid it next to the active file copy. And there it was. My breath caught in the archival file. The final permit request for demolition was logged on March 10th. In the active file, the approval for that same permit was stamped March 9th. They had approved the demolition a full day before it was officially filed. My heart hammered. This was it. This was the crack. I looked closer at the signature on the approval. Janice Riley, a clerk from the City Mark Permit Office. I knew her. I'd run deliveries to her desk. I knew her handwriting. She had a flamboyant, loopy J that always annoyed me. This J was tight, small, signed under pressure. This wasn't just a favor. This was coercion. I didn't take the file. I took a high-resolution scan, using the backroom machine, and emailed it to a secure, encrypted address Nora Vance had given me. We met the next morning. Nora's office was a glass box in the sky, a different world from the gala. She looked at the scanned image, a small, predatory smile touching her lips. "It's good," she said. "It's a discrepancy, but it's not a kill shot. It's Caro's word against a terrified clerk. We need to build a bridge. We need to prove Janice Riley is sending her files directly to Caro." "So we bait the hook," I said. Nora looked at me, impressed. "Go on." "We create a document," I said, The plan forming from my days at Pioneer, a moth file. We make it look like a highly sensitive addendum to the Pier 46 plans, something Janice would be terrified to sit on. We use the premium 80-pound bonded paper mister. Henderson keeps for the architectural firms. I know the stock. And I pointed to her computer. We embed a digital watermark, a tracker. The second that file is opened, we get a ping. We see who opened it. Nora's smile widened. I'll have a bonded courier deliver it to Janice's desk at City Mark within the hour. Marked urgent. Caro Ventures internal review only. The next 24 hours were the longest of my life. Then, Nora summoned me. I sat in her office, staring at a blank monitor. He's arrogant, Nora said, sipping an espresso, and he's in a hurry. He won't be able to resist. At 4:15 p.m., the screen lit up. A single line of code appeared. Ping. IP address 114.2.2.8.10. Nora cross-referenced the IP. Got him. The server belongs to Caro Ventures' primary legal team. He didn't even use a proxy. Arrogant. An hour later, an email hit her inbox. A single photo from a private investigator she'd parked outside the lawyer's office. It was a picture taken through a window, blurry, but undeniable. There, on a polished mahogany conference table, was our bait file. The distinct, creamy texture of the 80-pound bonded paper stood out like a sore thumb. We had him. The bridge was built. While we were building our trap, the BUI was trying to build theirs. They brought Silas in, not in cuffs, a polite, formal invitation. Agent Pascal Yen, the head of the Urban Integrity Unit, was all smiles and cheap coffee. He was the good cop type, the one who tried to be your friend before he read you your rights. Mr. Cade, Silas, you're a hard man to pin down, Yen said, leaning on the edge of a metal desk. We heard about the trouble at the Lumen Spire, a shooting. Your name. It just keeps popping up next to Rhett Caro's. Funny, isn't it? Silas said nothing. He just watched. Look, Yen said, dropping the pretense. We know Caro is dirty, but he's Teflon. He's got half of City Hall in his pocket. He's untouchable. He slid a file across the table. You have reach. You have assets. Help us, help yourself. We want Caro. Give him to us and maybe, just maybe, your own operations get a little less scrutiny. Become a provider. Do the city a favor. Silas stood up, the legs of his chair scraping the linoleum. He looked at the file, then at Yen. His voice was flat, cold. You're chasing a ghost in a leather jacket, Agent Yen, because it's easier. You like the obvious monster. He walked to the door. You're looking in the wrong direction. He left Yen alone in the gray room. The next move was Rhett's. He called me. My blood turned to ice when I saw his name on my screen. I let it ring twice, then answered, putting it on speaker for Nora's recorder. Mara, his voice was soft, broken, the voice he used to use after a fight. Mara, thank God, I've been so worried. That animal you're with, he's dangerous. The things he did at the gala. He's dragging you into his war. What do you want? Rhett. I need to see you're okay, he said, his voice thick with fake emotion. Can we please just talk like we used to for 5 minutes, Rainier Yard, the old scrap yard? It's open, it's public. I just need to look you in the eye and know he hasn't hurt you. Please. It was a lie, a sloppy, desperate, obvious lie, but it was also a summons. I texted Silas. Rhett wants to meet Rainier Yard, 1 hour. He'll have men. Stay back. I need to hear what he says. I need the leverage. The reply was instant. I'll be there. Dax is already 5 minutes out. Rainier Yard smelled of rust, rain, and diesel. Mountains of crushed cars and scrap metal formed a desolate, man-made canyon. Rhett was standing in the middle of a clearing, next to a rusted-out bus. He was alone. He looked stressed, his hair damp, his expensive suit rumpled. Mara, thank you, he said, walking toward me. I want this to end. I want us to end cleanly. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking past me, at the entrance. I need you to sign something. he said, pulling a file from his briefcase. It's just a formality. He opened it. Voluntary tenant relocation agreement. My stomach dropped. This is for my mother's building. It just confirms the tenants are willing to move, Seth, he said, his voice hardening. It stops the zoning fight. It makes this all go away. Sign it, Mara. I'll give you enough money to move your mother to a private clinic in Bellevue, $250,000. Just sign the paper. You tried to kill us at the gala, I said, my voice dead. What, no? He laughed, a high-pitched, frantic sound. That was Cade. He staged it to scare you, to bind you to him. Can't you see I'm trying to save you? No, I said. The fake charm vanished. The mask didn't just drop, it shattered. His face twisted into a mask of pure, reptilian rage. You stupid, stubborn. 2 Sky Shield guards stepped out from behind the bus, their hands on their holsters. Sign the paper, Mara, Rhett hissed. I don't think she will. Silas, he and Dax emerged from the drizzle, not from the entrance, but from the shadows between 2 stacks of crushed cars. They were just there. Rhett laughed, relieved. Silas, you came. Good. You and your one man. Against my team. You're finished. You're trespassing. We're not here to fight, Rhett, Silas said. He was wearing the leather jacket, and he looked like a part of the rain and the rust. He nodded to Dax. Dax stepped forward and placed a tablet on the hood of a wrecked car. He tapped the screen. It was a video feed, a split screen. On the left, our bait document being delivered to Janice Riley at City Mark. On the right, the private investigator's photo of that exact same document, with its distinctive premium paper, on the conference table in Caro Ventures' legal offices. That's a digital bridge, Rhett, Silas said, his voice quiet. That's felony conspiracy to tamper with public records. That's a minimum of 10 years. He took a step closer. Right now, that evidence is on a dead man's switch. If I don't stop it, it goes to Agent Yen at the BUI and to the Seattle Times in 60 minutes. He looked at Rhett, then at the paper in Rhett's hand. Touching her, Silas said, forcing her to sign that paper, is the same as touching City Hall. It confirms the conspiracy. It proves the coercion. It's the last piece of the puzzle. He stopped, 2 feet from Rhett. So go ahead, make her sign, or you get in your car and you leave. Rhett was pale, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. He was looking at Silas, then at me, then at the tablet. He was trapped, beaten, not by bullets, but by a paper trail. He threw the file on the wet gravel. This doesn't end. He spat. He motioned to his guards, and they scrambled back into their SUV. He was gone in a spray of mud. I was shaking. I didn't realize it until we were in Silas's sedan, the armored quiet sealing out the sound of the rain. The adrenaline drained away, leaving a cold, simmering rage. That's it, I said, my voice trembling. You just let him go. He tried to kill us. He threatened me. He's destroying my mother's life. And you let him walk away. It wasn't the time, Mara. We have the leverage. Stop it, I shouted, turning on him in the seat. Just stop it. Stop handling me. Stop appearing at the last second like some phantom bodyguard and then disappearing. You're not my keeper. You think you're protecting me. You're not. You're just another cage. A bigger, colder cage. He was silent. He stared forward, his hands resting on his knees. Not on the wheel. Dax was driving. The car moved through the dark, industrial streets. I know, he said finally. His voice was rough, low. It was the first time I'd ever heard it sound uncertain. I stared at him. What? I know, he repeated. This is the only way I know how to protect. He was looking straight ahead, but his gaze was in the past. There was a girl, years ago, before the syndicate was what it is. She got in trouble with a street racing crew, owed them money. He swallowed, a barely perceptible motion in his throat. I told her I'd handle it. She told me to stay out of it. She was smart, stubborn. She said she could fix it herself. She wanted to prove it. I I respected her independence. I let her. I stayed back, just like you asked me to. I kept my distance. The car stopped at a red light. The only sound was the rhythmic slap of the windshield wipers. "They ran her off the viaduct," he said, his voice flat, dead. "Went straight into the water. By the time my team got to the wreck, it was too late. I let her handle it herself." He turned, and for the first time, he looked at me. The armor was gone. The cold, steel mask had cracked. Underneath, there was something raw. It's an unhealed scar. Mara, when you're in danger, and I don't know how to stay back. I don't know how to let you handle it. I only know how to build a wall. I looked at the most dangerous man in Seattle, the ghost, the monster, and all I saw was the man who had failed. Decades ago, the boy who had made a promise to himself, a promise written in blood that he would never ever let anyone get hurt again. It didn't make him safe. It made him infinitely more dangerous. His protection wasn't about me. It was about her. It was about the girl in the water. And as I sat there, I realized I was both terrified of that armor and, for the first time, I understood the person hiding inside it. The confession hung in the air of the armored sedan, heavier and more dangerous than the rain lashing the windows. After he spoke of the girl, the viaduct, the scar, there was nothing left to say. Dax drove us out of the city, north, over the Deception Pass Bridge. The water below was a churning, angry gray. We arrived at a place called Whidbey Haven. It was not a compound, it was a house, a cabin, really made of dark wood and glass, hidden in a dense grove of towering pine trees. It sat on a bluff overlooking the sound. The moment we stepped out of the car, the wind tore at us, smelling of salt and wet cedar. A full-blown storm was rolling in. Inside, it was a single, large room with a deep fireplace and a wall of windows facing the churning water. It was a fortress, but a warm one. Dax and the other guard, a quiet woman I had not seen before, took up posts in a small guest cottage I could barely see through the trees. We were, for the first time, truly alone. Silas dropped a duffel bag by the door. "This is a safe house. No one in my organization, outside of Dax, knows this location. No one in Caro's world could find it." He walked over to the fireplace and began building a fire, his movements precise and economical. "There is one bedroom," he said, his back to me. "It is yours. The door has a lock. I will be on the sofa." I stood there, my coat dripping onto the slate floor. The confession in the car had changed everything. He was no longer a phantom. He was a man, governed by a wound. He turned to face me, the kindling in his hands. His expression was guarded, the armor back in place, but his eyes were still raw from what he had admitted. "The rules have not changed. Mara, you give the word. I am gone. Dax can take me back to the city. You will be safe here, but I will leave instantly." The boundaries were clearer than ever. My safety, my choice, put before everything else. It was the one thing Rhett had never, ever offered. "You should get out of those wet clothes," I said, my voice quiet. "We both should." The duffel held simple, practical things. Black sweatpants, a gray thermal shirt. For me, a similar set. We changed, worlds apart, me in the small, clean bedroom, him by the fire. When I came back out, my hair wrapped in a towel. The fire was roaring. It crackled and spat, a living thing in the room, pushing back the sound of the wind. "I found a kitchen," I said. "There's soup, cans of it." "Simple is good," he replied. We did not talk about Rhett. We did not talk about the gala, or the bullet, or the paper trail. We moved around the small kitchen, our shoulders brushing. We made soup. A simple tomato soup with grilled cheese sandwiches, like two ordinary people hiding from the rain. The steam from the pot fogged the windows, sealing us in, blurring the violent storm outside into a watercolor of angry, smudged colors. We sat on the thick rug in front of the fire, our backs against the sofa. The wind howled around the corners of the cabin, a low, mournful sound, and the rain lashed the glass like handfuls of gravel. "My mother," I said into the quiet. "She thinks I am still at the diner. She thinks I am just tired. I hate lying to her." "You are protecting her," he said, his voice a low rumble. "The CADE code, the part about non-profits, the clinics, was that your mother's influence?" He looked at me, surprised. "No, that part was older. It is just good business. A community that hates you is an unstable community. But your mother, she's the first time I have seen the code in practice. She's the first time it has cost me something to uphold it." "It is not just a code for you," I said. "It is a wall, like in the car. The girl on the viaduct, you built a fortress around that wound, Silas, and you are living inside it." He stared into the flames, his profile hard in the firelight. "The fortress keeps me functional. It keeps my people safe." "Does it?" I asked. "Does it keep you safe? You said you have insomnia. You stand guard in my hallway all night. When do you sleep?" He did not answer for a long time. The fire crackled, filling the silence. "Sleep," he said finally, "is difficult. It is a liability." The sound of a massive clap of thunder shook the house. It was not a crack. It was a deep, resonant boom that vibrated in my chest. I jumped, my hand instinctively grabbing his arm. His muscles were like steel, but he did not pull away. "It is just the storm," he said. "I know," I said, but I did not let go. I looked at his hand, resting on his knee, a hand that had signed checks for $500,000, that had worn a silver serpent, that had pulled a power cable to save my life. I looked at the man who had just admitted his deepest failure, the man who was planning to sleep on a sofa, 10 feet away, to protect me from himself. The rain hammered the roof, a deafening, relentless drumbeat. "Silas," I said. He turned to look at me. His gray eyes were clear, unguarded for just a second. "Do not escort me anymore," I said, my voice trembling but clear. "Do not guard me. Do not be the shadow in the hall or the man on the sofa. Just stay here, beside me, as a person." His breath caught. I watched his throat move as he swallowed. He did not move. He did not speak. He just watched me. His gaze, intense, searching. He was asking the question without words. "Are you sure?" I leaned in, closing the small space between us. I put my hand on his, the one on his knee. His skin was warm. I saw the consent in his eyes, the understanding. It was absolute. I kissed him. It was slow. It was not the desperate, frantic kiss of a movie. It was a discovery. His lips were chapped from the wind, firm and hesitant. For a second, he was perfectly still, as if he had forgotten how. Then, with a low sound, a sigh that seemed to come from that deep, wounded place, he kissed me back. His hand, the one I was not holding, came up. It did not grab me. His fingers gently cupped the side of my face, his thumb brushing my jawline. My skin came alive under his touch. It was a cascade of goosebumps, a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. My other hand came up to his shoulder, gripping the thick cotton of his shirt. The kiss deepened. It was long, unhurried. It was about the simple, profound sensory details. The smell of cedar and smoke on his skin, the taste of salt from the sea air, the rasp of his stubble against my chin. My breath hitched, and his own breathing was unsteady. A quiet revelation. I felt his heart thudding against my palm, a heavy, solid beat that matched the rhythm of the storm outside. His heavy shirt, his armor, felt like too much. My fingers fumbled at the hem, and his hand covered mine, stopping me. He pulled back, but only an inch. Our foreheads touched. His eyes were closed. His breathing was heavy, ragged. "Mara," he whispered, and my name on his lips was a different word. It was a plea. "I'm here," I whispered back. He opened his eyes. The storm was in them, but the wound was there too, and something else, something new, something soft. He did not look at me like I was a job to protect. He looked at me like a man. He kissed my forehead, then my temple. The one he had brushed in the elevator, then my cheek, my jacket, the one I had put on after I changed, was on the floor by the hearth. He reached for it, and then for a thick wool blanket folded on the sofa. He spread the blanket on the rug in the warm glow of the fire. The rain was a constant, roaring curtain of sound, insulating us from the world. He lay down, and he opened his arm. It was an invitation, a question. I lay down beside him, fitting into the space he had left. He pulled the heavy blanket over us both. He did not pull me against him. He just let me be there. I rested my head on his shoulder, and his arm came around me, holding me securely, but gently. I could feel the rise and fall of his chest. His hand found mine, and our fingers interlaced. The last thing I saw before I closed my eyes was the dance of the firelight on the ceiling, casting two shadows, close together, that looked like one. I heard the rain, and I heard his breathing, slowing down, finally matching mine, and for the first time, in the arms of the most dangerous man in Seattle, I felt completely, utterly safe. I woke to the smell of coffee and the pale, clean light of a post-storm morning. The rain had stopped. The fire was a bed of glowing embers. I was still on the rug, but I was alone, covered by the blanket. I sat up, my body stiff but warm. Silas was in the kitchen, his back to me. He was wearing the same clothes, but he looked lighter. The tension in his shoulders was gone. He heard me move and turned, a mug of coffee in his hand. He held it out to me. He did not speak. He just watched me as I took it, our fingers brushing. A small smile touched the corner of his mouth. I took a sip. It was perfect. He turned back to pour his own, and as he did, he rested his hand on the small of my back. It was a new gesture. It was not the formal, respectful placement from the gala. It was not the protective grip from the shooting. It was a simple, casual touch, a touch of acknowledgement, a touch that said, "We are different now." My prepaid phone, which I had left on the kitchen counter, vibrated, the sound harsh in the morning quiet. I picked it up, a new message, from an anonymous, blocked number. It was a photograph, a grainy, long-distance shot. My mother. She was leaving the clinic, getting into a black town car, the same kind Silas had used, but the car was not his. My blood turned to ice. My stomach dropped. Below the photo was a single line of text. Container Yard, 12, midnight, come alone. The coffee mug slipped from my fingers. It didn't shatter. It hit the thick rug with a dull, heavy thud, splashing dark liquid over the wool, the warmth of the morning, of his hand on my back, of the shared blanket, evaporated. It was gone. I was encased in ice. Silas was at my side in an instant. He saw the phone, the picture of my mother, the coordinates. The man who had slept beside me, the man with the scar on his soul, vanished. The Cade syndicate boss was back. His eyes went flat, cold and utterly lethal. The armor didn't just return, it slammed into place with the force of a vault door. He didn't speak to me. He pulled his own phone, his thumb hitting a speed dial. "Dax, bring the car to Whidbey. Now. Code black. They have Evelyn Quinn." His voice was a blade. He turned, grabbing the duffel bag, tossing my clothes at me. "Get dressed. We are leaving." The ride back to Seattle was a silent, armored hell. The intimacy of the cabin, the smell of coffee and smoke, felt like a scene from someone else's life. We were two strangers in a black sedan, moving at 90 miles an hour, separated by a gulf of fear and controlled rage. His operations center wasn't in a warehouse or a nightclub. It was a sterile, soundproof office on the 31st floor of a nondescript downtown building. Nora Vance was there, her face grim, flanked by Dax, and a woman I didn't know. She was sharp, dark-eyed, with her hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She wore a tactical efficiency like a uniform. "This is Juno Saye," Silas said, by way of introduction. "My right hand, what do we know?" "The photo is legitimate," Nora said, her voice rapid fire. "The car was a dummy lease. Sky Shield plates. They're not amateurs. They grabbed her from the clinic. A fake City Mark safety inspector, a gas leak scare, cleared the building, escorted her out, clean. The tracker, Silas snapped at Juno. Juno shook her head, her face pale. Gone. The car they used was dumped in Ballard. They transferred her. No signal. She was looking at her screen, avoiding his eyes. Rhett's liquidating. The Halcyon Tower funds are moving. He's pulling everything, funneling it through a crypto exchange. He's planning to run. He's not running, I said, my voice shaking. He's cleaning house. He's taking my mother as insurance. Silas was pacing, a caged panther. Find her. Find the car she was moved to. Use every asset. The door to the office burst open. Not Dax. Not one of Silas's men. Agent Pascal Yen. He was flanked by 6 BUI agents in full tactical gear, their weapons held low. Yen's smile was gone, replaced by a look of predatory triumph. Silas Cade, Yen announced, his voice ringing with false authority. You're under arrest. We have a warrant for this location. Silas didn't move. He just froze. This wasn't Rhett's move. This was the one move he hadn't anticipated. What's the charge? Agent Nora snapped, stepping in front of Silas, all lawyer. Anonymous tip, Yen said, his eyes on Silas. A major illegal arms cache in your number 4 warehouse on the water. We executed a search warrant 1 hour ago. Found enough hardware to start a small war. He smiled, a thin, ugly expression. But the real prize was the second tip, the one that told us you wouldn't be at your usual haunts, the one that gave us this location, your secret little nest. Silas's head turned, slowly. He looked past Nora, past Dax, his eyes locked on Juno. She wouldn't look at him. She was staring at her keyboard, her knuckles white. He knew, in that instant he knew. The tracker on Dax's car hadn't been for Rhett. It had been for the BUI. The tip, the arms, the timing, it was his right hand, Juno. And here you are, Yen continued, savoring the moment. No alibi, no Whidbey Haven getaway. He gestured to his men. Cuff him. Silas looked at me. His face was a mask of granite. He couldn't use the alibi. He couldn't say he was at the safe house, because that would put me in the BUI's crosshairs. It would expose the one place he had left. He was trapped by his own code. Nora, he said, his voice a low command as the agents moved in, cuffing his hands behind his back. Protect Mara, at all costs. Find Evelyn. And then he was gone, pushed out the door by the BUI. Agent Yen smiling over his shoulder like he'd just won the lottery. The room was silent. Dax looked like he was going to punch a hole in the glass wall. Nora was already on her phone, presumably to her legal team. My phone rang, the sound made me jump. It was Rhett. I answered, my hand shaking so badly I almost dropped it. Where is she? Your boyfriend is a little detained, Rhett's voice purred. It was the real Rhett. No more fake charm, just the cold, satisfied voice of a reptile. The BUI is so helpful. They're doing my job for me. It's so much cleaner this way. No blood. Where is my mother? I screamed. She's fine. A little cold. Probably Container Yard 12, but the door's locked. He paused. You have a choice. Mara, a little piece of paper. The voluntary relocation agreement. My courier is on his way to you. Sign it, and your mother goes home. She forgets this ever happened. And if I don't? Then she becomes a loose end, a very sad, very permanent loose end. He laughed. Or there's a third option. You want your new protector back. Tell his people. Him for her. Silas Cade. In exchange for Dr. Quinn, a clean trade. He can rot in that container instead. Midnight. The choice is yours. The line clicked dead. I looked at Nora. He'll do it, she said, her face ashen. Silas, he'll call from holding. He'll order me to make the trade. He will give himself up for your mother. It's his code. No. The word came out of me, cold and hard as steel. Nora and Juno both looked at me. The terror was gone. The shaking had stopped. In its place was a freezing, lucid rage. No, I said again, walking to the main terminal. No more trades, no more bodies for bodies. We're not giving him Silas. We're not giving him anything. He wants to fight with paper. He wants to fight with leverage. Fine. We're going to fight him his way. I looked at Nora. That file from City Mark, the Halcyon Tower funds. We're not just getting my mother back. We're burning his entire empire to the ground tonight. Nora's eyes, dull with defeat a second ago, lit with a fierce, new fire. What are you thinking, Mara? Operation Lighthouse, I said, the name coming from nowhere. He's at Yard 12. He's not just holding her there. He's moving his money through there. The servers for his crypto exchange. They have to be on site. He's sloppy, Nora agreed, her fingers flying across the keyboard. He's using a single-point exchange to liquidate. We can trace the terminal, she pointed. We get a drone, we fly it over the yard, find the container with the server, we find your mother. And we broadcast it, I said, finishing her thought. We don't just call the BUI. We call everyone. We use the data trail from the City Mark file. We send an anonymous press release, a data bomb, to the Seattle Times, the FBI, Agent Yen, and every financial blogger on the West Coast. We give them a live-streamed map of Rhett's stolen money, coming directly from his own server. It won't work. The voice was flat. Juno. She was still standing by her desk. They'll jam the drone signal before it's halfway across the yard, she said, and they'll know we're coming. How? Nora asked, spinning in her chair. Because I told them. Juno said. Her voice was dead. The tracker on Dax's car, the anonymous tip to Yen, the arms cache. It was me. I gave them Silas. Dax took a step toward her, his face murderous. Juno. He had my brother, Juno whispered, her face crumbling. Rhett. He had my little brother. Deep in debt to a crew he controls. He promised. He'd get him clean. A new identity. A job at Sky Shield. He said no one would get hurt. Just an arrest. Just to get Silas off the board for 12 hours. Until the money was clear. And you believed him? Nora's voice was full of contempt. He used your brother, I said, my voice quiet. I walked toward her. Dax tensed, but I ignored him. I stopped in front of her desk. He used your brother the same way he's using my mother. He finds the thing you love, and he puts a leash on it. Juno was crying, silent tears tracking down her face. I have to fix it. I have to help him. Rhett will not honor his deal, I said, my voice hard. You know he won't. The second his money is clear, your brother is just another loose end, just like my mother. I leaned in. You don't owe Rhett. You don't even owe Silas. You owe yourself. You owe the woman you were before Rhett turned you into this. Juno looked up at me, her eyes filled with a terrible, self-hating fire. She stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then she took a deep, shuddering breath. The tears stopped. Her face hardened, the shame being burned away by resolve. You're right, she said. Her voice was hoarse. You're right, the drone is too slow. She turned to her terminal, her fingers moving with a speed that blurred. Rhett gave me a backdoor, a master override for the yard's security net, so I could monitor the BUI's response and feed him intel. She pulled up a schematic of Container Yard 12, a complex, moving map of red and green boxes. Nora, forget the drone. I can get us inside the system. I can get us cameras. I can get us audio. He's not just moving money. He's running his entire server bank from a reinforced container. Her fingers flew. And he's not holding your mother in a standard box. He's holding her in a refrigerated unit. To block thermal. He swapped the manifest. A new window popped up. A grainy, black and white video feed. A dark room. A figure. Bound to a chair. I'm in, Juno said, her voice shaking with adrenaline. I've got her. I have your mother. The clock was a tyrant. Midnight. That was Rhett's deadline. My mother's life for my signature. Silas was in a BUI holding cell, a pawn in a game he was supposed to be running. We had a digital plan, Operation Lighthouse, but it was a data bomb. It wasn't a rescue team. Yen will keep him, Nora said, pacing the glass office, her heels clicking like gunshots. He'll hold Silas for the full 72 hours, try to sweat him, try to force him to flip on Caro. By then, the deadline will have passed. So we force Yen's hand. I said, I was looking at Juno's screen, at the map of the city. My mind was back at Pioneer legal copy, surrounded by paper. We don't just give Yen the data. We serve it to him on a silver platter, in a room full of cameras, so he has no choice but to act, not in 72 hours. Now. Nora stopped pacing. What are you talking about? The Dead Drop Gallery. It's tonight. I pointed to a blinking icon on the city map. A pop-up art event in a reclaimed warehouse by the stadiums. I know the curator. He begs for edgy content. It's swarming with local press, bloggers, urban influencers, the exact people Rhett loves to impress. Nora's eyes widened. You're going to crash it. I'm going to be the main exhibit. It was a heist, a legal media heist, with 1 hour to prep. I wasn't an artist. I was an archivist. My art was the truth. I went back to Pioneer. The key still worked. For 45 minutes, I was a ghost in my old life. I didn't just scan the fraudulent City Mark documents. I printed them. Huge, on the large format architectural plotters. I printed the timestamp discrepancies, the forged signatures, the timeline of the Pier 46 redevelopment. I printed Nora's flowcharts, the ones that connected Caro Ventures to Sky Shield to the Halcyon Tower crypto funds. Each one was a stark, black and white accusation. I rolled them up, my hands black with toner. At 9 p.m., I walked into the Dead Drop Gallery. The warehouse throbbed with bass and the scent of spilled wine and ambition. It was packed. Dax was with me, not as a guard, but as a shadow. He blended into the crowd, a ghost in a dark jacket, his eyes never leaving me. I found an empty wall, a stretch of raw brick between a neon sculpture and a video installation. I started hanging my art. I used a staple gun. The thwack, thwack, thwack cutting through the music. People gathered. They thought it was performance art. What is this? An influencer with blue hair asked, filming me on her phone. It's called Caro Venture/City Mark, I said, unrolling the next sheet. It's a study in municipal forgery. That's the demolition permit, approved 1 day before it was filed. This, I stapled the next one, is the environmental report, signed by a shell company. This is a money trail. A crowd was forming. They were intrigued, confused. They saw the logos. They saw the legal text. They recognized the names. Then he appeared. Rhett Caro. He walked in like he owned the place, flanked by 2 new Sky Shield guards. He was there to be seen. The triumphant, clean-cut face of Seattle's future. The man who had just taken a crime boss off the board. He saw the crowd. He saw me. He saw the wall. He froze. His smile, the one for the cameras, turned to brittle ice. He saw what I was doing. He was trying to frame me as a stalker, and I had just become his public prosecutor. He moved toward me, his face a mask of polite rage. Mara, this is desperate. Even for you, take this. Art, down. It's not my art, Rhett, I said, my voice loud enough for the phones pointed at us. It's yours. You signed it. He saw the influencer's camera and his tone changed. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, laughing, projecting to the room. My apologies, this is a distressed former colleague. She's having a hard time. We should give her some privacy. He was good. He was twisting it. He's right, I said. I am distressed. I looked at the blue-haired influencer. Are you streaming this? Liv, she whispered, her eyes wide. Good. I pulled my phone from my pocket. It was connected to Nora, back at the command center. I hit the enter key. Nora, now. Operation Lighthouse was live. At that exact second, every phone in the room buzzed. Every single one. The influencer, the reporter from the local blog, Rhett's own guards. They looked down. It wasn't a text. It was a data bomb. Nora's complete, unassailable file. The flowchart of money laundering, the trail from Halcyon Tower, the evidence linking Caro Ventures to the City Mark forged documents, and a link to this exact live stream. It was an anonymous drop from the Sunlight Pier. The room went silent. All you could hear was the click of people scrolling, their faces illuminated by their screens. "What is this?" someone shouted. "That's," the reporter stammered, looking at my wall and then his phone. "That's the same file. It's a direct money trail from the redevelopment fund to an offshore account." Rhett's face went white. He'd been exposed, not in a dark alley, but under the brightest, most public spotlight I could find. "This is a lie," Rhett shouted. "A fabrication. This is libel created by..." "By who?" "Mr. Caro." The voice cut through the room. Agent Pascal Yen. He was standing at the entrance, his face grim, flanked by 2 BUI agents. He was not smiling. He held his own phone up, the data bomb shining on his screen. He had just arrested Silas on a trumped-up charge, and now, 40 minutes later, he was standing in a room full of live cameras with irrefutable proof that he had arrested the wrong man. His own case against Silas, his provider, was about to be obliterated by a public scandal. He was trapped. He had to act. "Mr. Caro," Yen said, pushing through the crowd, "my office has just received this data. I have some questions for you about Pier 46, about Halcyon Tower." Rhett looked at Yen, then at me, then at the cameras. He was a cornered animal. This is a setup. Cade did this." "Mister, Cade is in a federal holding cell," Yen said, his voice cold. "He doesn't have access to his phone. But you..." He looked at the wall, at my art. "You're right here. I'd like you to come with me. Downtown." In the middle of the chaos, as Yen's agents moved toward a sputtering, furious Rhett, my phone vibrated in my hand, a text from a blocked number. "He's in interrogation. He's watching this on the news feed. He said, 'You did it.' And he's smiling." Tears pricked my eyes, a hot, sharp relief. I looked at the chaos I had created, at Rhett being escorted out, his mask of civility finally gone. A tired, ragged smile touched my lips. Then, a second text came through. Not from Nora, from Juno, back at the command center. Panic! Rhett made a call just before Yen grabbed his phone. He's not bluffing, he's moving her. The Yard 12 feed just cut. He's panicked. They're changing vehicles. A new signal pinged on my screen, a new set of coordinates. He's not at Yard 12. He's moving her to the North Line container terminal. Backup. A bigger team. ETA for arrival 3:10 a.m. The clock just reset. The chaos of the dead drop gallery was a lifetime ago. It was now 3 a.m. The North Line container terminal was a city of steel ghosts, a dead, silent maze rising 7 stories high. The air was thick with salt, rust, and the metallic smell of cold diesel. We were moving in 2 teams. Dax and Juno were the tip of the spear. They were a kilometer north, slipping through a gap in the chain-link fence. They moved in black gear, a single, fluid shadow. In my ear, I could hear Nora's voice, a calm, precise whisper from the command center. "Perimeter sensor at Gate 4 is looping," Nora said. "You have a 2-minute window. Juno, the pressure plates are live. Use the maintenance conduit." "I see it." Juno's voice was tight, breathless. "We're in." Silas and I were the second team. He was here. Yen, forced by the public humiliation at the gallery, had been forced to release Silas on bail, right into Nora's hands. An angry, cornered, and publicly embarrassed BUI was setting up a perimeter, but they were a mile out, blocked by Port Authority jurisdiction that Caro still controlled. We moved between the towering stacks in a canyon of corrugated steel. The only sound was the drip of condensation and the low, heavy thrum of the refrigerated units. It sounded like the yard was breathing. My eyes stung from the salt mist. "Welcome, Mara." Rhett's voice. It boomed from a dozen intercoms, echoing, surrounding us. "And Silas, I'm so glad you could make it out. I was hoping you would. I've been waiting." His voice was giddy, unhinged. "I told you. Mara, a life for a life. You brought your protector. A trade. That's all I've ever wanted. A simple, clean trade." He's stalling, Silas murmured, his voice low, not for the intercoms, just for me. He pulled me into the shadow of a massive crane. He's triangulating our position from our audio replies. I didn't reply. I just pressed my back against the cold, wet steel. Outside the gates, Agent Pascal Yen was in his car, slamming his fist on the dashboard. He was on the phone with his superior. "What do you mean, do not engage?" Yen hissed. "Caro is in there. The hostage is in there. The data bomb you received is proof." There was a pause. "Yes, sir, I understand. Caro's political reach. Yeah, I understand. We hold the perimeter. But for the record, this is a mistake." He snapped his phone shut, his face a mask of fury. He was a cop, a real one, but his hands were tied by the very corruption he was supposed to be fighting. Silas and I moved again. The silence was worse than the taunts. We were in a long, dark alley. No lights. He stopped me, his hand on my arm. "He will try to separate us," Silas said. "He will try to use you as leverage. I will not let that happen." He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a gun, a heavy, matte black pistol. My breath caught. He didn't just hand it to me. He held it up, and with a single, practiced motion, he hit the release. The magazine, heavy with bullets, slid out into his other hand. He tossed the magazine into the dark water of the pier. Then, he handed me the gun. It was heavy, cold, and empty. "What? Why?" I whispered. "This," he said, his voice a gravelly whisper, "is to steady your hand. It is not to fire. It is to remind you that your hand is not empty. When you get scared, you will feel the weight of it, and you will remember your own strength. It is a promise. Trust your instincts, Mara, not the weapon." I curled my fingers around the grip. It was cold, but he was right. The weight was solid. It was real. We moved. "Hold," Juno's voice, sharp in my ear. "Stop, both of T_T. We froze. We were in a small clearing. In the center sat a single orphan container. It was rust red, no markings, not on any manifest. "Juno, what is it?" Dax's voice. "It's a trap, a pressure sensor. The whole plate in front of it is live. It's not Caro's, it's old Port Authority. But he's routed it, he's using it. It's wired to a mine. Mara, Silas, do not move. Back away, slowly." "We can't," Silas whispered, his eyes scanning the ground. "We're on it. We're on the plate." There was a terrible metallic click. A timer, somewhere in the dark, began to tick, a soft digital beep, beep, beep. "Dax," Juno's voice was ice. "Junction box 3C on the east gantry. It's the only override. You have 10 seconds. "I'm not at the gantry." Dax's voice was strained. "I'm halfway across the yard." "You have to be... Run?" I could hear him, a phantom in my ear, the sound of boots on gravel. The beeping was faster. Beep, beep, beep. 9, Juno counted. 8. "I see it," Dax yelled. "The box is locked." 7. "I'm in," he grunted. "A mess of wires, red, blue, green, "It's the yellow pair," Juno shouted. "Cut the yellow pair." Beep, 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 beep. "There are 2 yellow pairs." The one wrapped in black tape." "Cut it, Dax." Beep, 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 beep. "Dax." A sharp static snap in my ear. The beeping stopped. The silence that fell was absolute. I was leaning against Silas, my lungs burning. I hadn't taken a breath. "Clear," Dax panted in my ear, his voice rough. "The trap is disarmed. The timer, it stopped at 0.1. My knees gave out. Silas caught me, holding me up. He held me for 1 second, his grip like steel, and then he pushed me upright. "We're moving," he said. We found her 5 minutes later, the refrigerated unit. Just as Juno had said, the door was sealed. Silas didn't pick the lock. He put his shoulder to it and used a crowbar he'd pulled from a nearby toolkit. The metal screamed in protest, and the lock burst. We swung the heavy door open. She was there. Dr. Evelyn Quinn. She was tied to a metal chair in the freezing, Pitch black interior. She was cold, she was pale, but she was awake, and her eyes were on fire. "Mara," she said, her voice a hoarse, strong whisper. I ran to her, cutting the ropes with a knife Silas handed me. "Mom, are you hurt?" "I'm just cold, and I'm angry." She rubbed her wrists, her gaze lifting from me to the man who filled the doorway. She looked at Silas Cade. She saw the gun in my hand. She saw the lethal aura around him. She took in the entire impossible situation. She did not panic. She was a doctor. She was diagnosing. She looked at him for a long, hard second, assessing the man who was with her daughter. Then she gave a single, sharp nod. "Get my daughter out of this." "A doctor, Quinn." Silas nodded back, a gesture of absolute respect. "This way, quickly." We helped her out and stepped into a nightmare. Whomp! A dozen high-intensity floodlights snapped on, blinding us, pinning us in a perfect circle of white, sterile light. What a touching reunion. Rhett, his voice was real. He was standing on a gantry crane, a metal bridge 40 feet above us. He was flanked by 6 Sky Shield operators, all in black tactical gear, all with rifles leveled at us. "You really are a hero, aren't you?" Silas, Rhett mocked, a handgun dangling in his grip. "You came all this way. You brought the money. You brought my leverage." "It's over, Rhett," I shouted, shielding my eyes. "Yen is outside. The BUI is here. We sent them everything." "Oh, I know," Rhett laughed. "You think I care. You think your little lighthouse project mattered? It just made me move faster, and it gave me the perfect audience for the finale." He snapped his fingers. A massive projector screen, built onto the side of a 40-foot container, flickered to life. And I saw myself. It was me, laughing, at a bar with Rhett years ago. The audio was warped. "I just want someone to take care of me." Then a new clip, me, in the emerald dress at the gala. The audio was from the phone call, twisted. $250,000. Just sign the paper. It was a masterpiece of slander. He had cut and pasted my life, twisting my words, painting me as a shallow, manipulative gold digger who had used him and was now using Silas. "You see, Silas," Rhett shouted, his voice ringing with fake sympathy. "She's been playing you. She used you to get to me, and now she's using you for your money. She's a liar, a parasite, and I'm just the victim. You're the victim. We're the victims." He raised his pistol. He aimed it not at Silas, but at me. And now, I'm just cleaning up the trash, ending the lie. Silas stepped in front of me. He pushed me behind him, shielding me with his own body. He looked up at Rhett, and he was completely calm. He knew the BUI was recording. He knew every rifle was on him. He shouted, his voice a low, powerful command that cut through the night. "I'll stand down, Rhett. I won't move. You can have me." Rhett's grin widened. "But first," Silas continued, "you open the north gates. You let the innocent port workers out, the night shift. They're trapped here. Let them go. Let them go. And you can have me." Rhett froze. His smile wavered. It was a checkmate, a moral gambit. Silas had just sacrificed himself, in front of witnesses, for the innocent. Rhett couldn't just execute him. He couldn't shoot a man who had just surrendered. Not while the BUI. And now, my doctored video was his only defense. The rifles wavered. The yard was silent. The only sound was the hum of the projector, still playing a loop of my stolen, twisted words. The projector light was a halo, trapping us. Silas had offered himself, a perfect, noble sacrifice. Rhett's grin was one of victory. He had Silas. He had my mother, and he had his doctored video painting me as the villain. He had won. But I was still holding the empty gun Silas had given me, and in my other pocket, I had my own weapon. I stepped out from behind Silas. "Mara, no," Silas tried to pull me back. "He's right, Silas," I said, my voice clear and loud, projecting over the hum. "He's right, this is about a lie." Rhett's grin widened. "See? She admits it, I held up my hand. In it was not the gun, but a sleek, silver stylus, the City Mark digital signature pen, the one Janice Riley had used. "This is the pen," I said, my voice ringing out, "that signed the fraudulent demolition permits for Pier 46? Rhett's face went blank. "What, that's just a pen." "No," I said. "It's a digital record, and thanks to your man at City Mark, it has a compromised security certificate, which means—" I pressed a small, hidden button on the side. "It has a live broadcast feed. It's streaming, right now, to every server Nora Vance gave me, including Agent Yen's." On the BUI perimeter, Yen's laptop chimed, the feed appeared. His eyes went wide. I held the pen up to the light. "I know paper, Rhett, and I know signatures. I spent 2 years archiving your corporate files." I gestured to the projector screen, which was still playing the loop of my lie. "You want to talk about proof?" I said. "Let's look at your signature." I tapped the pen, and the live feed projected onto the container wall, next to Rhett's doctored video. I pulled up the bait file from Pioneer. "This is your signature, Rhett, the one you use on every public document. Look at the R. A big, arrogant, open loop, the mark of a narcissist." Then I swiped. The file from City Mark appeared, the fraudulent demolition order. "And this," I said, my voice dropping, "is the signature on the order to destroy my mother's clinic. Look at the R. It's tight, closed, scratched into the paper. That's not your signature. That's Janice Riley's. That's the signature of a woman terrified for her job, a woman being coerced." The yard was silent. Rhett's face was ashen. "You didn't just forge a document, Rhett," I said. "You left a paper trail of your own crime, and now the entire internet is watching it, live." Agent Yen lowered his binoculars. He looked at the live feed on his laptop. He had just been handed an irrefutable, publicly broadcast, in-progress felony. He couldn't ignore it. His political masters couldn't stop it. "All units," Yen's voice crackled over the radio. "Move in. Now. We're effecting an arrest. Caro is the target. He's armed and dangerous." The first BUI spotlight hit the gantry. "Rhett Caro, this is the BUI, put your weapon down." Rhett looked at the approaching lights, at the screen, at me. The mask was gone. The charm, the intellect, all of it dissolved into pure, primal panic. He was a cornered rat. "You!" he shrieked, his voice cracking. "You bitch!" The Sky Shield operators looked at each other, confused, their rifles wavering, their authority. Yen was now arresting their boss. Rhett raised his pistol. He didn't aim at Yen. He didn't aim at Silas. He aimed at me. He fired. The sound was a deafening crack. I didn't even have time to flinch. Silas moved. He didn't just step in front of me. He threw himself into me, spinning us both, his body absorbing the full impact. He grunted a deep, sharp sound of pain. We fell to the gravel. "No!" I screamed. "Silas!" I scrambled, turning him over. There was blood, a dark, spreading stain on his shoulder. His jacket was already soaked. "Get behind me," he gasped, his face pale, trying to push me. I ignored him. I ripped off my own jacket and pressed my bare hand into the wound, hard, trying to keep the pressure, to hold him together. No, you don't. You don't get to do this." He looked at me, his eyes full of pain, locked onto mine. He was here. He hadn't disappeared. "He's still armed," a Sky Shield operator yelled. Juno's voice in my ear. "The jammer. He's got a camera jammer, Dax. You're blind." Crack. A different sound. A rifle shot, precise. From the darkness, the projector Rhett had been using sparked, smoked, and died. Juno. "Jammer is down," Juno yelled. "Dax, you are clear." Dax moved like a shadow, coming from behind the gantry, taking out 2 of the Sky Shield operators at the knees. They went down, screaming. The others dropped their weapons. It was over. My mother ran to us, Dr. Evelyn Quinn. She ripped open Silas's shirt, her face grim. "All emergency room. It's through and through. The shoulder. It missed the artery." You're lucky. She grabbed my hand, repositioning it. Here, press here. Silas grunted, his eyes squeezed shut. Breathe, my mother commanded, her voice pure steel. Breathe evenly. Look at my daughter. Look at her. Stay with her. He opened his eyes. He looked at me. He stayed. Nora, I yelled into the comms. Now light it all up. With pleasure, Nora's voice replied. Lighthouse Protocol, Part 2, engaging. Every BUI agent's computer, every phone, every news desk in Seattle, lit up. The rest of the data, the audio recordings of Rhett bribing the city mark official, the secret contracts for Halcyon Tower, the complete, unassailable timeline of the entire conspiracy. The last wall didn't just fall. It was vaporized. The north gates of the terminal screeched, rolling open as Nora's hack took control. The port workers, the night shift, ran out, free and clear. Agent Yen was the one who climbed the gantry. He was half a beat too late, but he was there for the finale. He ripped the pistol from Rhett's numb hand and spun him around, slamming the cuffs on his wrists. And Rhett, he broke. In front of the BUI cameras, in front of his own men, he started screaming, Get off me, you can't! Don't you know who I am? I am Seattle. I am the future. He thrashed, his face purple, saliva flying. You're all nothing, she's a whore. He's a dead man. I own this city. It was a full, public, career-ending implosion, a self-immolation in real time. Yen just hauled him away. The mask of the city's golden boy finally, completely gone. The yard was a chaos of flashing blue and red lights. Medics were moving in. I was still on the ground, my hands covered in Silas's blood. He was leaning against the container, his face slick with cold sweat, but he was watching me. I crawled closer, ignoring my mother, ignoring Dax. I pressed my forehead against his. The only clean part of him? Don't you ever, I whispered, my voice shaking, don't you ever disappear again. He let out a short, pained breath. His hand, his good one, came up and weakly touched my hair. If you tell me to go, he rasped, I will go. If you tell me to stay, I will stay. But it will have to be different. I will have to be different. The denouement was quiet. The next day, Silas met with Nora, Dax, and Juno in his hospital room. His arm was in a heavy sling. He gave the order. The Cade Syndicate, the parts that lived in shadow, was dissolved. All assets were funneled into the Sunlight Pier Foundation. Legitimate. Clean. Juno stood, ready for her sentence. Sir? 5 years, Silas said, his voice quiet. Not in a cell. 5 years running the Community Outreach Division for the Foundation. You will report to Dr. Evelyn Quinn. You will dedicate every day to rebuilding what you helped tear down. Juno stared at him, tears welling. She nodded, accepting. The Cade Syndicate was dead. The Cade Trust was born. The BUI, forced by the mountain of public evidence, formally reopened the city mark investigation. The mayor's office was implicated. It was a clean sweep. Doctor. Evelyn's clinic received its $500,000 donation and an additional anonymous one from the new Cade Trust, securing it for good. I went back to Pioneer legal copy, Mr. Henderson offered me my job back, his face red with apology. I accepted, but I didn't go back to the blueprint machine. I moved to the front office. I started a new division, Community Records Access, helping people like my mother, people in the shadows, find the paper trails that could save their homes. That night, Silas, his arm in a black silk sling, found me at my apartment. The air was different, quiet, calm. He didn't have his guards. He held out his hand. In it was a single, old-fashioned brass key. Whidbey Haven, he said. It's yours. I had the cameras taken out. I looked at the key. It wasn't just a key. It was the fortress. He was giving me the key to the fortress. A house with no cameras, I said softly. No shadows. No more lies, he said. No more hiding. I took the key, and I pulled him inside. The kiss was not like the one in the cabin. It was not a discovery. It was an acknowledgement. It was slow and warm, and it was a promise that we would build a place where no one, not him, not me, would ever have to lie to be safe again. Thank you so much for listening to our story. We would love to know where you are listening from. Please comment below, share your thoughts, and let's connect. Subscribe to our channel, Mafia Boss Stories, and please like this video. If you enjoyed this, support us by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.